Good evening and welcome to the Sound Off Show. My name is Linda Kirker. I host the program, and thanks for joining us tonight. It's a crazy time in the world, isn't it? We're all dealing with the ramifications of the COVID virus, and I'm hoping that very, very soon everything is going to straighten out and doors are going to be open and families are going to be able to get together and schools will all be open, which is critically important. And we can get back to rebuilding our business structure and just enjoying our friends and our lives. And it's a crazy world. It really is. The state of Vermont is doing things that I find concerning, and certainly what's happening in our country with the border opening and people by the multi-thousands are coming into our country. Where's the process? Where's the United States immigration process? It should not be just open door, come one, come all, because when people come into this country from other nations, that affects our lives and our country and our pocketbooks and so much more. So we need to secure our national border. President Trump did a good job with the money that he could get the Congress to fork up. And anyway, I hope you're all doing well and staying safe and healthy and having an opportunity to meet with friends and family. April's my favorite month. That's my birth month, and I really like spring. I like all the seasons. Anyway, my guest tonight is someone I always enjoy having on the program. His name is Michael Lannon. And Michael is a long-time educator in our school systems. And I'm looking forward to, not only is he an educator, but he's also very knowledgeable about what's happening in our country and a good spokesperson. I think you're going to learn a lot tonight and enjoy it. So. He's a character, too. He had me laughing here. So we will start with welcome.
Well, thanks again, Linda, for having me on. It's good to be back and good to see you in good health, and all of your audience is in good health because you just wished them that, so I know they are.
I hope so. Okay. Well, you're always a few laughs and a lot of information. You and I were chatting before the show began, and I wonder what topic concerns you the most, whether it be in the state of Vermont or whether it be in the United States. What is it that really concerns you these days?
Remaining a republic, I think, is probably one of the biggest topics that's on my mind. Can we as Benjamin Franklin said to the woman that he addressed immediately after signing the Constitution, it's a republic, madam, if we can keep it. That adage of 245 years ago is ringing very true. Ronald Reagan said it best: every single generation must fight for this country to remain a republic. We are in the fight of our lives right now to remain a republic and not become a socialist/communist nation. And the Democratic Party is doing everything it can possibly do, and has now for a good 50 years, rolled out a agenda to destroy this nation as a republic and make it a much more socialistic nation, which, by the way, there has never been anywhere in history, including the Greeks, who tried a socialistic society and it survived. They don't survive because what happens is that the top end makes money. The bottom end is supposed to help the top end make money. But those who don't wish to do anything more to earn a living are given their bread and butter. And eventually everybody decides, I'm just going to get the bread and butter. And that's what happened with Governor Winthrop's trial and error with the early Pilgrim Quaker group, and they failed miserably on the farms, and they almost starved to death, actually. So that would be my biggest concern. I got a lot of sub-concerns, but can we maintain ourselves as a republic? And I'm very fearful right now of whether or not that actually, whether or not the United States, the greatest country that's ever been invented by man, under the auspices of the Judeo-Christian God-given principles, remains so. We'll see.
I could not agree with you more, my friend. This country was formed as a constitutional republic where the government was limited to certain responsibilities, and the people were empowered as well as the states were empowered. And now we have a federal government, and we've seen this, well, on the Obama administration and other administrations. It's been creeping up on us where government takes over more and more.
The erosion of the government has occurred in both parties for the last 60 years. I mean, I'm 77, believe it or not. Been teaching, by the way, 53 years, and I can tell you right now, I've watched it all happen from right here in Vermont. When I was a young boy, the Vermont government was one of the few in the nation that had a balanced budget every single year.
Not now.
It was a Republican government. They met in the legislature within the guidelines of the state constitution. They got paid very little money. They wanted to get home to their farms and their families and get things done at home. But they ran the state, and it ran very well. We elected a governor by the name of Hoff, and you can start measuring the defective budgets from that administration all the way up to both the Republican and Democratic administrations, to the administration of Phil Scott, that currently, under this COVID-19 major restrictions, has cost the Vermont dearly. It's going to cost us even more when we come out of the COVID-19. We are not going to recover quickly. Vermont never, by the way, recovers quickly from any of these economic catastrophic events. We're very slow. We never come back as fast as the rest of the nation. And so for us to think that we're going to this time, I'm out of Rutland. We've had 5 restaurants down there closed down. We've got businesses that have closed. Those doors are closed forever. Rutland, before the COVID-19's Main Street was pretty much totally dead. It's going to continue to be that way. It's a nightmare. So I don't know how St. Albans looks. I drove through St. Albans tonight coming up here. There's a vibrant section of downtown St. Albans, but there's also a big section of St. Albans that says for lease, for rent.
Yeah, those buildings, the brand new buildings that I was mentioning to you before the show began, in downtown St. Albans, definitely have for lease. They're brand new buildings.
Okay.
But there are also a number of the smaller businesses along the main street that are closed.
Oh, well, I noticed that. I don't think there's very many communities in Vermont that are vibrant right now, and the largest community metropolitan area, if you could call it that, in Vermont is the Burlington and its 4 or 5 suburban type cities, and none of them are doing very well. And they just had a very close election. I think Burlington had re-elected their mayor by 60 votes, and the guy that almost beat him is an avowed socialist, which would take you back to the terms of Bernie Sanders.
Oh, boy.
Those of you that believe that Bernie has been great for the state, please read the record. He has not been good for the state. He's never been good for the state. And if you look back at when he got elected, it was a controversial election that was very much like the election right now. It tainted the elections in Vermont. We will have the elected officials say that Vermont has never had a problem with elections and fraud. Go back to Bernie's term, and you'll see that it occurred.
Really?
Absolutely. He was voted in by illegal votes out of the college.
Oh, well, he's the one who made it such that the college students could vote in Vermont, even though they lived out of state.
That's what happened back there. Before it was law, he had that, they were voting, and it never got fixed. So, and
at least a year ago, if not more, I wrote a letter to our current governor, Phil Scott, suggesting that if college students from out of state want to continue to vote in Vermont, which I don't think they should, but if they're going to allow that to happen, then there has to be a process by which their home state, what do I want to say, clerk in their community, where they may be registered to vote at home. Let's say they live in Pennsylvania, but they're going to school at UVM. There needs to be a process whereby they sign a legal paper letting their hometown clerk know that they will not be voting in their twice.
Once at home and once
exactly.
At school. Well, fraud in Vermont, don't let anybody kid you. I know of a case in Rutland where the absentee ballot was presented, and for whatever reason, the name of the person that voted absentee never got crossed off on the in-person voting record, and that person came in and got a second ballot. And in Vermont, if you get caught doing something like that, you can lose your voting rights forever, which I don't believe would ever happen because Vermont's going to let you vote if you're voting Democratic. But it did happen, and the voter turned around after they had gotten the ballot, was on the way to the curtain. They turned and said, "I have no business having this ballot in my hand." The clerk said, "What do you mean?" He said, the voter turned and said, "I've already voted. I voted absentee." She was shocked. The clerk, she was shocked because it should have been marked off. It wasn't. So how many times did that kind of stuff happen? You know, Rutland, there was a gentleman down there that ran a very close race in one of the wards, and he lost by 1 vote. They asked for a recount, and they found one of his votes in a different ward bag. That should never have happened. In other words, his ward was in a certain voting poll, but the vote that he lost by was in a completely different part of the city in the wrong bag. So he lost by 1 vote. Well, the next time he ran, he won by 260. But it was just that one time where, come on, what happened? How did this happen? You know, nobody had an answer about, well, you know what happened. There was shenanigans going on.
Yeah.
You can't deny that there weren't shenanigans because it's right there in front of you.
It's a lot of that happened in this last presidential election. Unbelievable. When the Republicans were not allowed within, what was it, 10 feet or of where the clerks or the
one in Georgia where they shut down the polling place at 3 o'clock in the morning or 2 o'clock in the morning, and they brought out 3 big bags of votes.
Oh yeah,
it's all on camera. And what was that all about? So you know, the integrity of the vote is the most sanctified part of the American electorate.
I agree.
You have to agree that all of the voting must be 1 vote per person. It has to be a legal vote.
You have to be registered.
In Georgia right now because they simply took their they tried to rectify what happened.
State of Georgia
basically said if you don't have a verifiable ID and a signature, you're not going to be allowed to vote. Oh, that's suppression of the vote. Go to Delaware and see what theirs is like. Go to New York and see what Georgia is just catching up with the times. Actually, they've given, if you really read what they've done down there, they're going to allow more voting than they've ever allowed in their life. You just have to have an identification.
Well, you have to be a U.S. citizen. You have to have proof of that. I think that the voter card that you have to present should have your photo, the fact that you're a U.S. citizen, your birth date, your address. Listen,
Linda, I can't go to the Democratic National Convention, wherever they hold it, without an ID. It's got to be written right on here. I can't even get into the school system that I'm working in without my picture and without a barcode that allows me into the building. This is nonsense that we don't have the ability to control who's voting. And I don't think somebody should vote 50, 60, 70 times or stuff a ballot box. That's totally illegal. And nobody out there listening tonight can really in their heart believe that that's not going on. Because if one person can think about doing it, or one person somewhere in this country has done it, you can count on it having been done many times. Because I believe in this past election, there was all kinds of, at the national level, people sending out the message on how to do this. I think it was you can call it a conspiracy if you'd like, but somebody somewhere was in charge of making these votes hit the proper states.
It was planned.
No kidding. You can't be ahead 250,000 votes at 2 o'clock in the morning and be behind 500,000 votes by 8 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
There's no way that can be, that's not mathematically possible. And then the courts have no courage, which goes back to the heart of what you just said when we built this republic. This was supposed to be a balanced government. In other words, we were supposed to have an executive branch watched over by a legislative branch that was composed of a deliberative body called the Senate and a financial governance body called the House of Representatives, and then a court system that was supposed to be fair and blind for justice for all. This system that we're in right now isn't any of that. You've got a president of the United States, and it's been like this now for 5 or 6 presidents, executive order after executive order after executive order. The legislative body that we sent down to Washington, Leahy, Sanders, and Welch, those guys are deliberately not reading the Constitution and just obliterating what they're being sent down for. Don't send them anymore.
We have a caller.
Oh, we do? Good. Let's go.
Caller, welcome to the program. What's on your mind?
Let me tell you about my voting history. 1964, I'm 18 years old, November 1964, getting ready to vote for Barry Goldwater.
Yoo-hoo!
You know what they tell me?
What?
You're only 18. You can't vote till you're 21.
What?
So I had to wait till 1968, where I voted for Nixon. 1972, voted for Nixon. 1971, Nixon signs the 18-year-old, July 5th, 1971, Nixon signs the, you can vote at 18 years old.
Yep.
And it's 1964, I'm 18 years old. The draft board is hot on my tail, but I'm not allowed to vote.
Yeah, I had that same problem, and it was disgusting. You're allowed to bleed your blood for the nation, but you're not allowed to vote. That was a big issue.
Yeah, that's a big problem. How are you?
I'm doing well. I got my 2 shots.
There you go.
Good for you.
I hope you didn't have any problems. I had my 2 shots. I didn't even have pain in the arm, so I hope they put the right stuff in the arm. I don't know.
Well, there are those of us who get them, and there are those of us who don't.
Ah, you're one that's not doing it, Linda?
I had a bad experience with vaccines about, let me see, 2014 or 15. I was pushed in at the doctor's office, my doctor's office, by the assistant, and well, you should have your Pneumovax and your flu shot. I said, thank you, but I don't want them. Well, they kept pushing and pushing. Finally, I said, just do it. So I had both injections.
And you got sick.
9 days later, both feet were numb. I went to see a neurologist, and he checked my feet, and I said, do you think that this numbness 9 days after those 2 vaccines is a factor? And he said yes.
Well, I got my shots. My wife's an asthmatic, and I don't dare bring it from school in. And I got my school's been open, shut. It's one class is shut down this week, and it's moving up through the school. It went from preschool to kindergarten, first and second grade. Now it's in the third grade. So I teach fifth and sixth grade science and math. So I don't want it to come into my house. But anyway, I've got the shot. Is the caller still on?
Are you still there, Tom?
I'm still here.
Hey, so Tom, I'll turn the question around that Linda asked me. What's on your mind? What's the biggest problem facing us?
The southern border.
Boy, you got that right.
That's a huge one. Absolutely.
Boy, that is a disaster.
I'm glad I don't live in Texas.
Well, you may have some of those folks right here in Vermont before long. They're shipping them out. I understand they're putting them on airplanes and sending them out to states that are willing to take them, and I've heard that Burlington's willing to accept the batch.
Oh, wait a minute! You can't get on a plane unless you have proof of your vaccine.
Yeah, well,
that only pertains to the Americans.
Tom, I think you're right. That's going to be that is a large disaster because just what they're doing with the children. They raked Trump over the coals for less than what's going on right now. Today, I heard there was 21,000 children unaccompanied that are in the. They call them the cages or whatever they are, but they turned back last month 100,000 people, and they've got more than 100,000 they can't account for. They're in the country. They've dispersed and they're gone.
This is pure nonsense,
it's craziness,
stupidity. It is not healthy for our country. It is not healthy, really, for. I don't know.
So those of us that are sitting in the room, Tom, what's the solution? What do you think?
Well,
close the border again.
Yep. Get the National Guard down there. Get the military down there. Get all of the what's the name of the Border Patrol all down there, and get the people who were constructing the border wall. Get them down there and get that wall built.
I don't think that's going to happen, folks, because I think the Democrats are playing a long game here. They're thinking that if they get 500,000 people over the next 4 years in illegally, those are their next major votes in the states that are along that border that they want to turn blue.
Well, are they going to be working? Are they educated?
Well, currently they don't have to be working. They'll just vote. And who knows how many times.
And we'll take care of them?
We're doing it right now. That's Tom, you just hit it. That's amazing. Is that one of your problems, Tom? Is there's money?
Yes.
Yeah,
well,
we
what about these children? These children are going to have to wait till they're 18 before they can vote.
Right, and by that time, the school system will have brainwashed them to such they'll vote nothing but a socialist party. If you take a look at what's going on in the school system today compared to what you had for an education, Tom, you'd be appalled. I'll bet you had to sit in the classroom and do some work called reading, writing, and arithmetic. I'll bet you had to write papers. I bet you had to learn to write. Probably had to learn to write your name. Probably had to sit down and be quiet and do some work.
And do a lot of math problems. I had to.
I bet you have a better education right now than the kids that are graduating. I know I did. I had a much better high school education than the children in the state are getting today.
It was tough. You had to work hard.
You had to work. There was things to be done, and there was no. Well, I'll just call you mommy and daddy, and mommy and daddy call up and say, "Don't talk to my kid this way." If I got into trouble in school, I didn't want my father to ever know. And if my mother found out, he found out. So that wasn't that was not a good deal.
Yeah, there were repercussions.
Yeah, consequences for bad behavior, consequences for not doing your work. So,
but did
you graduate here in Vermont, Tom?
No.
No, both Linda and I are from New Jersey.
Oh, you poor guy. I'm sorry.
Yeah, he's my cousin.
But actually, we got a very good education.
Excellent.
I think Americans back in the 50s and 60s got a tremendous education.
It really was.
So.
And the motivation to work hard and excel and to get on the
I don't think that when we grew up, Tom, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think we had as much welfare then. I think I grew up poor. I had one shirt that I can remember I had in high school. Maybe I had two shirts, but my parents taught me that the value of education was my ticket out of the house. That was my ticket to life. That was my ticket to success. That was my ticket to everything. So get an education. And their words.
I was the first person in the family to graduate from college.
There you go. The importance, the importance of that. See the importance of that education.
Well, and Tom was always a good kid, and I wish I lived closer so that I saw him more often. But there are so many things that play into the scenario that we're talking about, and this individual empowerment that you get from a family that teaches you individual responsibility and accountability, work ethic.
50 years ago, Linda, we had the moral value of the family. The moral value came from the Judeo-Christian church-going family members, and there was a father in the family, and there was a mother in the family, and even though they would stay together, even though sometimes they only stayed together because of the children. That was a very strong moral value back in the 50s and 60s. You didn't see a lot of divorced families. You saw mom and dad working their fannies off to make things happen.
Absolutely.
Most moms stayed at home, but not all. But there was a family structure and a community structure on the street. So I knew if I got into trouble on the street, somebody would call mom or somebody would see my father. And that kind of moral value is now been taken over by the state. And the state has no clue what's going on in St. Albans. It has no clue what's going on with the families in Rutland. They're sitting in Montpelier in their fine wooden chairs or whatever they're sitting in, but the state government has no clue what's going on with the family structure in any community in this state. That's impossible for them to know that. The churches used to know, and people used to go to church, and the pastor would know, or the priest or the rabbi, they would know what was going on in their congregation. Today, that's not true. They don't know. If you go to today and you go to and ask most pastors, there's exceptions to every rule, most priests, most pastors, most rabbis cannot tell you the top 10 or 15 kids that are in their parish. They don't know who they are because they're not coming to church. So sometimes they can't even tell you if there's a divorced family there. They can't tell you if the kid is doing okay or not doing okay.
Well, I'm fortunate that in my church, people are close. They care about one another, and the pastor, I believe, knows what's going on, and if there's a family that is, having a difficulty, there's a way that the church can help.
So let me ask you a question. So have you been in that parish for many years?
Several.
Okay, so let's say, for instance, the church that I go to right now, at one time there were 500 parishioners. It's now down to 100.
Wow. Well, is that because of COVID?
No,
it's because they're not going to church. That was before COVID. Now it's
for the first time, less than half the people, 49.8% of people say that they go to church. So this is the first time that less than half of the people are going to church.
That's right. And that's where the moral value used to be. At least once a week, you got the moral value of the 10 Commandments and the commandments of the Christian religion, the commandments of the Jewish, Judeo-Christian commandments. They were taught right there. I mean, you went to Sunday school, you went to catechism, you do whatever you had to do, but there was that backing up of the mom and dad's family structure about, thou shalt not steal is a perfect one. Kids today, they figure they can go into a store. Not every kid, because lots of good kids, believe me. But there's kids that believe, well, that's Walmart. I can take that pair of shoes, or I can take that. Nothing's going to happen to me. They had a terrible shooting in Rutland this past weekend. A 17-year-old boy shot, I believe, an 18-year-old boy. They were high on drugs. They were at a party at a local hotel, 20, 25 kids. They were allegedly playing with a gun, and this kid shot the guy blank, face Shot him right in the face, killed him.
Oh, dear.
Their lives are ruined. And the kids that were at the party, they were high on cocaine and LSD and drunk as skunks. You know, the lawsuits are going to be huge. All those kids, they can't find the gun. Somebody took the gun. You know, all these kids are now accessories. Their lives are ruined. You know,
let me go and enjoy the rest of the show, okay?
Well, thank
right,
you.
Tom. Thanks
thank
for calling
you,
in.
Tom.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
So that's a disaster. You know, but that's a moral value right there, because I know what's going on. I've heard enough in the last 2 days about what their family structure was like. There was no family structure. And I would love to know the 25 children that were at that party. And I'll bet you there were kids under the age of 17 there, because I've already heard from a fifth grader who knows somebody that was there that's 15. So, you know, it's like, wow, this is craziness. But these are the kind of things that are going on in our little state of Vermont.
Well, I know, and now they want marijuana shops in your local community.
This is crazy.
When we have so much access already, why are children drawn to this? Is it because
they get a message from people that they are listening to that have no brains and are telling them that marijuana cannot hurt their brain and that it's no worse than alcohol, even if that. So you and I are not going to be around to pay the bill for the mental health problems that are going to be caused by the use of marijuana, and they're going to be huge. There's a depression that goes on that's deeper than alcohol, and the research is there, but the legislators, they feel that they're going to make a ton of money here, just like they did with cigarettes. And you know the cost of taking care of someone that's got lung cancer, someone that's got any kind of a cancer that was caused by smoking.
It's awful.
But we tried to ban that. And no, we try to put a emphasis around the abuse of alcohol. And you know what it costs to take care of an alcoholic? Yeah, these are huge medical expenses.
Look what's coming
that are lifelong.
Look what's coming across the border.
Oh.
Drug dealers.
85,000 people died from cocaine overdoses last year.
In this country?
Yeah.
85,000?
85,000. And who knows how many survive that are never going to be anything other than a vegetable. You know, we don't hear these statistics, and they don't talk about this in front of children. They don't let children know. I do in my classroom. I say, anybody that thinks it's going to be okay to drink, you're crazy. Anybody that thinks it's okay to suck smoke into your lungs and think that you're going to survive, you're crazy. So the next time you have somebody say it's a cool thing to do, think twice. Same with cocaine, same with heroin.
They need to hear these things.
They sure do. They need to hear it. And kids want to know. They'll ask you the questions about it. I have kids ask me questions that they should be asking, that we used to ask our mom and dad about.
It is amazing when you talk with young people today and you are honest with them about life, how appreciative they are.
They want to know.
They're hungry to hear
you
about.
And I wanted to know too. We got most of our sex education was not the greatest when I was a kid. We got a lot of it in the locker room.
I didn't get any.
Okay. Oh, my dad, when I was at the right age, my dad sat down, and this is his words to me. Son, don't you dare bring an embarrassment back to your mother's doorway. Do you understand me? Yes, sir, I understand.
You know what
I knew what he was talking about.
Really?
Yes.
I knew nothing.
An embarrassment would be to get a girl pregnant and have to come home and tell your parents. That would be a disaster. So he was telling me right up front that was taboo in our house.
When I was about, I don't know, 18 maybe, my mother said to me one day, Linda, before you get married, I want you to know that there's a book in my dresser that I want you to read. That was all I ever heard.
Did you read the book?
Wait a minute. Well, I wasn't about to get married, so no, I didn't. But when I was a freshman in college, my mother died of ovarian cancer. And I think at some point because I was up here at UVM and she was down in New Jersey where I grew up. So maybe I glanced at it at some point. I don't even remember. I think I did. But there was no talk about sex in my family.
Yeah.
None. Zip, nada. And that, I think it's good because I never got involved with it until it was appropriate.
All the social issues that surround abortion, which is certainly a conservative no-no issue and certainly a Judeo-Christian no-no issue, those things were happening back then, not like it is prolific now. I mean, girls got into trouble and they did things that were medically just craziness. But we were taught as kids, abstinence was the better value. That's what my dad was talking about. He was saying, you do this, and she gets pregnant, you're marrying her. It's that simple. You know,
But you have a responsibility.
That was not just me. When we would talk about it, you know, boys talking about it, we all had the same kind of thing. We were all coming off the same bus. We were all coming off the same street. We were all coming off the same sports teams. And when I was a senior in high school, there were 800 kids in my class. There was one boy who got a girl, a junior, pregnant. He married her. They're still married today.
Wow.
He married her. She finished high school. He finished high school. He never got to go to college. He was smart as a whip. But he's done all right, you know. But today that wouldn't happen. You know, it just wouldn't happen.
Children.
Which goes to the other issue, too, because of that moral character. So many people get into a marriage. I've been married 53 years.
Good for you.
And guess what, Linda? It's not always a bed of roses.
Of course not.
There are days that she is 110% in the marriage and I'm not. And there's days that I'm 110% in the marriage and she just sits in the chair and says, go away. You know, so, but we know going into the marriage that we have to work at it. And every day we work at it. We try to we try to make sure we've never gone to bed without kissing goodnight. We never go out of the house in the morning without saying good morning and kissing each other there, even though we're really mad at each other. Mm-hmm. We just don't let it happen. I mean, those are values.
Absolutely.
Today, though, you get into one fight, I'm done, I'm out.
Yeah.
And they walk out.
Where's the commitment?
The guys do it a lot. They walk out on their wives. Why? You know, so you have a fight. Figure out where the common ground is.
Yeah, talk it over.
Go out and find the exact same girl. My experience is that you know what attracted you to your wife the first time. The next girl that comes along, she may not be as beautiful, but guess what? It's the same kind of girl.
Yeah. Well, relationships require work, commitment, caring. You know, all kinds of things, you know, caring, sharing. It
goes back to the question you asked me about the republic. We lose the republic if we lose the family. Without the family structure, we have nothing to hold on to. As my father-in-law used to say when I'd go into the law office and work with him, he would say, Mike, reach back here and grab hold of a legal peg and hang on tight. That's what he was talking about, hold on to a legal peg. Well, a peg of the republic is the strength of the family.
Absolutely.
As strong as if we weaken the families, and the government wants us to weaken the families. They want us to be
today's government does.
Oh, they want you to be dependent upon the government. That's the religion. If you can be dependent upon the government, you have to obey their rules, their regulations, their policies and procedures. You don't get paid.
Just like Medicare for all, okay? That is government dependency.
Yep.
Number one, government control over your life. When I spoke with the 7th and 8th graders the last time, one of the things I said before I left was, the more the government does for you, the less control you have over your own life.
That's right. You lose your freedoms. And
when I received thank you letters from the students, one of the students put that in there. I didn't realize that the more that government does for me, the less control I have over my own life. And we need to be independent of government.
Oh.
This is our right. This is our opportunity. This is our freedom. The more that government clamps on to your life.
Think of the first 5 pieces of the First Amendment. First one, the government is after a religion. They're trying to tear religion right out of the soul of America.
Today.
I guess it's today. Look at the freedom of speech. We're very lucky that we can sit here tonight and speak. It won't be that much longer before you'll have to be speaking with a government script. That's what they do in Russia and China.
Not in my...
The corporate press, the dishonest corporate press, the only corporation in America that is given a freedom to be a free press. And what do? They side with one side or the other. Mostly they side with the left. It's a left-leaning press. And we, as Americans, have got to start some discernment. I don't care if you're already politically left or politically right. You need to make sure that you're reading both sides so you can make a discerned judgment about what's going on. Because if you only read what's happening on the left, you get a left side, and therefore you have a mind that cannot be flexible. That's a fixed mindset. If you're on the right side and you do the exact same thing, you have a fixed mindset. You have to be able to have enough knowledge on both sides to come together to have compromising positions. Right now in this country, there's no such thing as compromising position. You're either a lefty or you're a righty. And you're a bum if you're on the right side, and you're a hero if you're on the left side.
Not in my book.
Well, no, not in my book either. But they're trying to say, let's unify America. Well, if you don't have a common ground to unify with, and you keep dividing the nation, or you divide, I can't come to the table and talk to someone that's going to look at me and say I'm a nut job.
How about we just stick with the Constitution?
That'd be nice.
I want to read this. The First Amendment to the United States, the First Amendment to the United States Constitution, written many, many years ago.
245.
245 years ago. From my teacher, I got that. Okay, here we go. Amendment 1, freedom of religion, speech, and the press, and the right of assembly and to petition government. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, or not the establishment, but an establishment of a religion, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. What are they trying to do today?
Well, I can tell you what they're trying to do.
They're trying to do away with the religion, basically. Okay. Prohibiting the free exercise of, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. Now, you have the right to peaceably assemble, but look at all of these outbreaks around the nation where you have people rising up and destroying police cruisers and private businesses and national, what do I want to say, statues and all kinds of things. As far as I'm concerned, these people should be in jail.
The hypocrisy of the 2020 summer all the way up to January 6th of 2021 and the attack on the Capitol is nothing more than to watch one section of this country allow vandalism, allow lawlessness, and allow it to occur, still occurring in Portland, Portland, Oregon. Mm-hmm. It should have been stopped right from the beginning. You said lawfully assemble.
That's right.
Illegal, unlawful assembly should be suppressed. There's no such thing. Most political assemblies in this country are free of any of that kind of rioting and craziness. But what really galls me is what happened at the Capitol and how fast they arrested these people and are bringing them to court, and all the people that killed policemen in these major cities.
But those were not.
They weren't arrested. There's been no criminal charges pressed against the people that did all that kind of stuff. So that's what we talk about when we talk about not having a legal system that is for all fair. It should be fair across the board.
Apply to everyone.
No kidding. But that's not happening.
But that group of Trump supporters when they left, and he said to them, "Go peaceably and make your voices heard."
Linda,
Okay.
they have proof that this was all planned 3 or 4 days in
Antifa
advance.
bus pulled up.
It was 3 or 4 days in advance. This had nothing to do with President Trump, unless he was involved with planning it 3 or 4 days in advance. There's no way that he was involved with that. This is a man that believes in this country. He didn't want this to occur. They want to blame him for it.
But his supporters didn't want that either.
No. Who the heck wants to riot at the United States Constitution Hall and the Congress and all these other things? Nobody wants to do that kind of
And
stuff.
isn't it interesting that the building, where they went?
It was the Congress.
The Congress,
Congress.
but there's a name for it. But anyway,
Yeah, Congress.
Capitol building.
The House of Representatives and the Senate Hall.
Yes,
Capitol building,
yeah, the
Congress.
Capitol building. Isn't it interesting that they didn't have their usual Capitol police?
That would not surprise me to find out that there's a deeper conspiracy there than
to allow this Antifa group to invade the Republican group and then to do all the damage, and with no significant police force.
It's
it was planned.
we're never going to be. You and I are never going to find out about these things because they hide it. We don't have a strong police. A fair police group in Washington. The FBI is corrupt, I believe. I think the Department of Justice has been corrupt for years. I think it was part of the big swamp that Trump didn't know how to handle. He put in 2 attorney generals that really weren't very good.
Yeah.
But it's very hard if you're walking into a group of people that are already going to undermine you.
That's what
same thing happens in the teacher's room. If you have a principal that comes in that's hired to try to do a good job at cleaning the teacher swamp, he gets thrown out because they're not going to. It's very difficult to get rid of a teacher, and if they're lousy teachers, and a lot of them are, there are a lot of teachers that aren't teaching. They stay forever. It's very.
Okay.
You can get rid of them. There's no such thing as you can't get rid of a teacher. The NEA would like for you to believe that, in school.
Well, they're a union member. That's why.
Well, the school board just needs to read their contract, and usually by paragraph 2 or 3, it says the power to run the school lies with the board. It doesn't lie with the NEA, and that's in every contract I've ever read. That's in.
Well, who's on the board?
Well, hopefully they're community members that have an interest in their children getting a good education. Now, if that's not true, which in some cases it's not, I can show you a school board in southern Vermont that has 2 socialists on it. And therefore, they want the school to be totally controlled from a socialist agenda. I can name them right now if you asked me to. Call in, I would.
Well, as I see it, there are so many efforts in this country by leadership to destroy fundamentals in so many areas of the country. Unbelievable. Education is probably one of them.
Khrushchev said he would take the country down through the education system. Said it in the UN back in 1954, 55. Took his shoes off, banged on the table, said, "We've already begun."
Well, when you have proficiency learning, all right, and as I understand it, correct me if I'm wrong, instead of a student taking a written test, the teacher can offer them an opportunity to select a project they want to do to demonstrate that they have an understanding of the knowledge, the information that they're supposed to have learned. Now, does that work?
Only if the teacher has proficient knowledge and understanding of her subject content so that she can provide a meaningful and appropriate feedback such that the learner could move progressively through the curriculum. Well, you don't have that in place, and if the teacher doesn't know what they're doing, then you're asking a child to present an authentic presentation. That's what you're describing. So I'm going to do an authentic presentation that might give me, in a proficiency-based educational world, a high 4, which would be, in your world, an A. So if they can't do that, then they shouldn't be getting that 4 or that A. So that would put them down to a 3, which would be, in your world, a B. And a B would mean that they needed some more work to do. That certainly wouldn't put them on the honor roll. Next, a 2 would be a C. Anything below a 2, a 1, in the world of proficiency, in our way of education, that would be a D. Anything below that, in other words, you've got a non-productive disposition. You've got a child who's doing nothing. That's the F. So it hasn't changed that much. It's just a number system now without the Fs. You don't fail anybody. So everybody gets a 1.
So does anybody get an A or a B?
No, you get a 4.
Nobody?
You get a 4.
Even the really good students?
You get a 4.
That's pathetic.
That's the...
What if you take a test?
Yeah.
A written test.
Yeah.
And there are 25 questions on it.
Yep.
And that means everyone is worth 4 points.
Yep.
If you get, 80% of them right.
Yep, that's a B. Used to be, there'd be a 3 today.
There's nothing really to strive for.
Sure there is. You're striving for the 3. You got your 80%.
What's wrong with a B? What's wrong with an A or a B?
You'd have to talk to the powers in the State House that believe that education should be a proficiency education. They've spent years on this. I'm only telling you the way it is right now.
But what if you have 5 really top drawer students in your classroom?
Yep.
Can you give them a written test?
They give written tests all the time still. There's no such thing as not giving a written test anymore. That's called a summative assessment. Sure, I give a written test still. You have summative assessments. Am I getting away from the TV by rolling back?
Yeah, I think you want to roll forward.
Summative assessments are the same as when you and I went to school. They can be in different ways. I mean, some children can't write, so you might give them an oral examination.
They can't write?
Well, there's kids that graduate from high school that can't write in the state of Vermont. They might be able to write their name, but they can't write a paper.
Why?
You'd have to ask them or ask their teachers. I don't know. I've got 5th graders right now that can't read, write, and do arithmetic, and they're going to be passed on to the 6th grade. And I got 6th graders, the same problem. They're going to be passed on to the 7th grade. There's no holding the child back in the state that I know of anymore. So that used to be held over a child's head, that if you didn't do the work, you didn't move on. So,
but there has to be a motivation to excel, a drive within you to do your best and to accomplish.
Well, when I was a kid, there was that motivation. It was your ticket out. It was a ticket out of poverty. Because my parents came out of the Depression. They knew the value of $1. And it was sunk into my head, too. The value... Wealth wasn't what you learned to spend, it was what you learned to keep. I mean, that's a lesson my father taught me.
Well, my parents
taught my first paycheck.
Taught me a lot of really worthwhile lessons, and work ethic was a big one.
Well, I don't know that we teach a lot of work. This is a very surface thing. I got to remember, audience that's watching, there's a lot of good kids in the state of Vermont. There's a lot of good kids in our high schools. There's a lot of great kids that are producing wonderful work. Whether it be proficiency with a 4 or it be an A, they're still great kids. They're going to do great things in life. They're blessed with families. They're blessed with thinking. They're blessed with all the things that the power of God gives them. And then there are children that are unfortunately not blessed with those things, and they struggle mightily. And I'm not talking about the intellectually dysfunctional or the children that are with some form of dysfunction. That's a different set of children that get all kinds of services from the state government, from federal government. I'm talking about just normal children that are coming up through the ranks that are going to be our future taxpayers, our future American citizens, our future
business people.
Yeah, they're going to be our doctors and our lawyers and
parents.
Our business people. And they're going to be, well, a lot of these children all the way through the spectrum are going to be parents. The only person I ever know in this entire country that ever advocated the destruction of a race was Margaret Sanger and her birth control pills and her abortion clinics, which became Planned Parenthood. And people don't realize this. Margaret Sanger was a eugenics nut job that wanted to destroy the black population. That's
really?
Read her stuff. That's what she wanted to do. And we've hidden that part of her life and said birth control is a great thing. And we don't hear a lot about the damage it does.
So abortion is supposed to be called birth control?
Well, abortion is a form of birth control.
Okay. But they call it, oh, darn it.
I call it murder, but that's okay.
Yeah.
It's a very big issue because, it is a form of birth control. It's a dangerous form, and I don't know of anybody that I've ever talked to that's had an abortion that really liked what happened afterwards. I mean, there's a lot of mental health issues that occur afterwards that they don't talk about, I talk to the kids all the time about the egg and the sperm and what happens in the zygote and what happens, how the brain is so instantly formed and how, the kids want to know this stuff because nobody's talking to them about these things. And I think every parent should, there's booklets out there on what it means to...
The heart's beating at 12 weeks or something?
To have a pregnancy, what that means. And I think if girls and boys heard these informational sessions and really thought about it, there'd be a whole lot less promiscuity and the other side of saying it's okay to have sex and all this other stuff. It's not okay to have sex. It's not. That's where the moral values of the church has been destroyed, because the moral values of all the churches, the Christian churches, you just didn't have, not that it wasn't going on, because everybody in the audience knows that there were backseat love affairs and there were pregnancies from there, but not like today. There's a lot of sex going on today that's it doesn't matter.
But they have condoms in the middle school.
You sure do.
What does that say?
It says sex is okay.
Yeah, exactly.
So.
And I can't think of the word that I wanted.
I think we're turning this into a sex ed program.
What was that?
I said, I think we're turning this into a sex education program.
Well, we're
too old for this stuff.
We do wander, but we've been around a while.
Linda, all these things affect the political structure of the country. All these little things that people don't want to talk about affect the entire political structure. Let me just finish right now. Here's a perfect example. Joe Biden is supposed to be a Roman Catholic. He violates every single tenet of the Roman Catholic Church. And yet, the press will say this is a fine, upstanding Christian Roman Catholic. Here's a guy that believes in euthanasia, but has voted for it all his life. Here's a guy that's had voted for abortion, all forms of abortion, including abortion of a baby that's now born and survived an abortion. That's totally against the Catholic Church, those two tenets right there. Okay? Here's a guy that doesn't tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth. That's a total devaluation.
He only tells what he reads.
Well, it's all the moral values. So for people in the press to tout him as being a wonderful Catholic, or Patrick Leahy. Patrick Leahy's the same. As far as I know, Patrick Leahy's a Roman Catholic, doesn't go to church.
Shouldn't go to church. We're down to a minute and 35 seconds. But there's just so much going on that goes against the grain for us older folks who lived through a different era.
If you're under 50 years of age, save the Republic. That's all. Read and read and read like you've done, like I've done. Save the Republic. The Republic is at hand.
Yeah, and the future of our children and the future of the country. That's why I'm working with the Girl Scouts now.
That's a great. I heard that you were doing that. That's wonderful. Yep.
They're going to learn about our country, and I think that's important. I'm going to reach out to more areas and see if I can get more people interested.
Well, St. Albans is rich in American history, early American history,
yes.
all the way from the Civil War back to Revolution.
I just want to say you are a wealth of knowledge and experience, and I'm sure your students are blessed to have you as their teacher. And
They pay me $50 a day, each one of them. So.
And you're a character too. But thank you again
Thanks for having me again, Linda.
Joining me on the show. We wander around from one topic to another, but it's fun. And folks, I hope you enjoyed the show too. I will see you again next week with another great guest. Have a great week. Stay safe. Good night.